The Flying Trunk. There once lived a wealthy merchant who was admired far and wide for his fortune and wisdom. His home sparkled with treasures, his ships sailed across great oceans, and his name was known in every market. But life, as it always does, changed its course. When the merchant passed away, all of his riches were left to his only son, a cheerful young man full of dreams. At first, the son lived a life of joy and splendor. He wore clothes made of silk, dined on the finest foods, and hosted grand parties filled with music and laughter. Everyone wanted to be his friend. But there was one thing the young man did not understand: how to take care of what he had. He spent his gold like the ocean spills its waves, freely and without end. And as the coins slipped through his fingers, so did the friends who once surrounded him. One day, he woke up to find his house empty, his pockets bare, and his name forgotten. Just as sorrow began to settle in his heart, a small, mysterious package arrived at his doorstep. It was a wooden chest, worn but sturdy, with a single word carved into its lid: prepare. The young man frowned and muttered, "Easy to say, prepare, but I have nothing left to prepare with." With a deep sigh, he opened the lid and climbed inside, almost hoping the world would forget about him. But something extraordinary happened. The moment the lid shut, the chest began to tremble gently. Then, whoosh! It lifted off the ground and soared into the sky, higher and higher, through the clouds and far beyond the mountains. The boy could barely believe his eyes. Wind danced across his face, and stars winked from above. After a long journey through the skies, the chest descended slowly into a peaceful forest, blanketed with golden leaves. He stepped out, dizzy and amazed, and carefully hid the magical chest beneath the trees. As he walked toward a nearby town, he heard whispers of a magnificent castle with glittering towers and windows so tall they touched the clouds. The king and queen lived there with their daughter, a princess known not only for her beauty, but for her cleverness and kind heart. Curious, the young man returned to the forest and climbed back into the chest. In a burst of wind and wonder, it lifted him into the air once more, this time toward the towering castle. When he reached the highest window, he slipped quietly inside. The room was soft and full of moonlight. There, sleeping peacefully on a velvet bed, was the princess. She stirred as the wind brushed her face and opened her eyes, startled to see a stranger standing beside her. "Do not be afraid," he whispered kindly. "I mean no harm. I am not a thief or a ghost. I am simply a traveler from far away, a friend." The princess, still half in dreams, blinked and asked, "Did you fly here?" "Yes," he smiled, "in a magical chest, through the clouds." His words felt like a dream, but his eyes held truth. She sat up, curious and calm, and the two began to talk. They shared stories about stars and forests, and how sometimes losing everything can help you find what truly matters. Before long, he found himself asking, "Will you marry me?" The princess looked at him and said softly, "Yes, but only if my parents agree." Then she added, "My mother loves stories with deep meaning, and my father enjoys stories that make him laugh. If you can tell a tale that does both, I know they'll say yes." The young man agreed. He flew back to the forest and began to write. Day and night, he sat by the chest, shaping words into magic. His tale was ready by Saturday. Meanwhile, the princess had told her parents about the mysterious traveler. Intrigued, the king and queen invited him to the castle. He arrived wearing simple clothes, but with eyes full of wonder and heart full of hope. The queen smiled gently and asked, "Do you have a story for us? One with meaning, something that stirs the heart?" "And something that makes us laugh," added the king, his eyes twinkling. So, the young man began his tale. It was about a tiny fish who wanted to live in the sky, and how he used a teacup and a dragonfly's wing to build his flying boat. The story made the queen sigh with wonder, and the king burst into laughter. When it ended, the room was silent, then full of clapping hands and happy tears. "You may marry our daughter," said the king, smiling proudly. "Your heart is strong, and your spirit is kind." The wedding was set, and the whole kingdom sparkled with lights and joy. On the night before the wedding, the young man whispered to himself, "I want to give them one more gift." So, he loaded the flying chest with as many fireworks as he could carry. As night fell, he soared into the sky once more. Then, pop, pop, pop. Colors exploded across the heavens like blooming flowers. The whole city cheered. "It's true!" they cried. "The princess is marrying a magical being from the stars." Satisfied and smiling, the young man flew back to the forest. But when he arrived, the chest was gone. Only ashes remained, glowing faintly in the moonlight. A single spark from the fireworks had drifted down and set the chest aflame. He sank to his knees. The chest, his only way to return to the castle, had vanished forever. Back in the tower, the princess waited all night, eyes fixed on the sky, heart full of hope. She waited the next night and the next. Days turned into seasons. Yet still, she believed he would return. And as for the young man, he wandered from town to town, carrying only his stories. In every village, he brought laughter, wonder, and a touch of magic, just enough to make children believe in the impossible. Some say the princess still waits in the tower, looking up at the stars. And the boy, he still tells tales about a flying chest and a love that once soared higher than the clouds. Moral of the story: too much cleverness can sometimes take us too far from where we belong.